magic lies within the trails we ride.
G'day everyone, I'm Warwick Schiller and welcome to the first episode of Journey on Ranch TV. So Journey on Ranch is our new ranch that we bought early in 2023 here in Paso Robles, California. It's a 42-acre beautiful place, and we bought this after the Journey on Podcast Summit in late 2022. You know, that was such a transformational experience that we decided we wanted to get more into the transformational space. So we bought this earlier this year. We've had several retreats. We've had one clinic and several retreats, and we have a lot of plans for a lot more retreats here and a lot more clinics here in the future. And we've decided to start this TV show called Journey on Ranch TV to show you some of the stuff that goes on around Journey on Ranch here, as well as showing you some of the fun things we get up to when we travel around the world.
Journey on, the magic lies within the trails we ride. Move along, the lightness you seek is by your side. And everything that's shut down is coming back to life. Just because he knows that you know. The spark is creeping back into what was once closed eyes. Just because you see what he shows.
Recently, I got to go to England to present at an event called the Horsemanship Showcase. And the Horsemanship Showcase is a bit of an anomaly in England. A lot of times, horse expos in England will have a lot of jumping and dressage and the traditional English events, whereas the Horsemanship Showcase is it's more about the horsemanship and getting inside the horse's mind. And so it was a great place to go and present at. But the day I got there a couple of days before, and I got to go and do an interview with a lady named Kate Wensley, and she writes for a horsemanship magazine in the UK called the Horsemanship Journal, and that was very cool going to have an interview with Kate. Then I got to go to dinner with my niece Michaela. She is from Australia, of course, lives in England where she's a paramedic, and I haven't seen her for a couple of years, so it was great to go and catch up with her and have dinner. The Horsemanship Showcase, during the day, it has all sorts of demonstrations by different horsemen, but at night time they have a thing called the Destiny Horsemanship Showcase. And so previous podcast guest, Ben Atkinson's one of the big stars of that. So Ben does a lot of work. He does, all his Liberty work with, I think he had a team of 8 horses. So he Liberty Roman rides 2 and has 6 others loose that go around there with him. He will Roman ride 2 horses and drive 4 others in front of him, all sorts of amazing stuff. So I got to go and watch the rehearsal for the Destiny Showcase. And one of the acts they have there is a stunt team, and one of the guys in the stunt team is a guy named Oliver Phillips. Another guy in the stunt team, Freddie Steele. They're both pretty cool dudes, but Oliver and I think it's Freddie have this part of their act is they have this like Wild West scene, and they have this whip cracking scene to where one of them will put spaghetti in his mouth and the other one cracks it out of his mouth with a whip. And I said to Freddie, you know what, from an audience perspective, you can't really see that spaghetti get cracked. I mean, you get the idea that you hit it or whatever, but I said, what if we could make up something that was more visible, and especially something that had a bit of not an explosion, but something more visible. So I got a sheet of A4 paper out of a photocopier and I rolled it up in like a big cigar shape and poured some baby powder into it. And so then Oliver and I went outside, and I was the guinea pig. I was the test dummy, and so I knelt down there on the ground and got Oliver to see if that worked. And the visual effect of that thing cracking worked really, really well. So we talked about them putting that in the show on the Saturday night, and then we got talking about, well, what if you could light it because it looks like a cigar or a cigarette, what if you could light it like that? So then we decided we'd try stuffing toilet paper in the end of it, and would the toilet paper go whoosh and it would go up too quick, or would it light? And it actually lit, so it worked out. They ended up using it in the show, and they're probably going to keep using it, but so it had the baby powder in it, plus the toilet paper in the end, so when they lit it up, you could see it was on fire. When they cracked it, the fire went out, but the baby powder kind of exploded all over the place. While I was at the Horsemanship Showcase, I got to catch up with not only Ben Atkinson, who'd been on the podcast, but a number of other podcast guests. Kathy Price came over from Wales, and her good friend Catriona MacDonald, who was also a fan favourite on the podcast, they came over. And Tanya Kindersley came down from Scotland, so it was really good. I got to go to dinner with them, catch up with them, and have a great old chat. They kept me pretty busy at the Horsemanship Showcase. I had I had a demo each day, but then I had some trainer talks. One day we did a trainer talk, so there was myself, Sean Coleman, Lee Rudder and David Zund, and we kind of sat in a round pen and had a microphone and people got to ask us questions. That was very cool, and it's so cool hanging out with other horsemen like that, because the thing that I get out of that is when we sit around and chat, we don't talk around horses. We talk about life, we talk about personal growth, we talk about interesting things, and it's just so interesting. It's so cool that the horses is what brings us all together, but there's an underlying something else under that's not about the horses. It's more about the connection. So I got to do a demo every day, and both days, and I recruited a horse who's he's a Welsh Section D, whatever that is, and I recruited a horse that is hard to catch. I did this demo a lot at different horse expos. I did it at Western States Horse Expo this year in California. I did it at Mastery of the Horse on the Gold Coast in Australia. And it's one of the basic exercises I do where I turn a horse loose, and through communicating my awareness of their change in focus, they feel safe with me, and instead of hanging out at the gate looking over the fence whinnying for their friends, they usually come and hang out with me. And sometimes that once they start hanging out with me, it's all about the connection, it's all about that feeling of safety. And once they start hanging out with me, there's nothing to do unless there's something to do. Like, let's say if a horse gets a bit concerned about something in the distance and looks at that, well, I'll look at what they're looking at. If they want to wander around and sniff the ground, I might match steps with them and go with them. But that usually comes later after after you've communicated your awareness of their awareness. And I had some really cool posts on Facebook afterwards about the things that I did with that little horse. One of the coolest reports on what happened with that little horse that was on Facebook was by a page called No Ordinary Horse. So I don't know who the person is, but they said, softness reveals itself when layers of tension are removed. When someone shows us they hear us, see us, and understand how we feel, it speaks to the depth of our heart and acknowledges our very essence. You are not alone. You are safe. That's what I saw Warwick bring to the UK with his kindness and open heart. That's why people waited patiently in the cold, to be seen, to be heard, to say thank you. That's why a pony changed in front of our eyes. In its presence, it felt like coming home. The same sunshine Nashan brought, they're talking about Nashan Cook, the purest joy shone from Kathy, Tanya and Kat. Its glorious warmth felt in conversation with strangers becoming friends, seeing, heard and felt. So that sounds a lot like what happens at the podcast summit, and the podcast summit is the reason we bought this place here. Inspired, I took it to my horse today and showed him that I saw his doubt, his anxiety, his worry. Tension melted and softness was revealed. Yet we don't have to wait for our heroes to bring it. It doesn't have to be a one-time thing. The light is within each of us. There is no ordinary horse. There is no ordinary human. It takes courage, it takes trust, it takes vulnerability. It is the most precious gift we can offer. I see you, I hear you, I feel you. I am here with you. You are safe. And that pretty much sums up what happened with that little horse. And it happens at most of the times you do that exercise. And what was really interesting is that horse was a Welsh Section D, and I had posted on Facebook before I went over to England that I was working with a Welsh Section D, and I'd had people felt the need to message me and say, oh, well, it's going to be tough because Welsh Section Ds are different than other horses. And my reply to them was, I have not found breeds to be different. The mammalian nervous system works the same for horses as it does for humans, and that horse was, it's like he read the script. He kind of was the same as every other horse I've worked with, I've done that exercise with. Every other horse that's in the same emotional state he was in that I've done that exercise with. And even after it went really well, I got home and I had people comment on Facebook and said, oh, it was so interesting that it worked so well because that horse is a Welsh Section D. And it was really interesting, one of the talks that we had in front of an audience, so Ben Atkinson was in it, I was in it, who else was in it? David Zen's wife, sorry, I can't think of her name. And there was one other one I can't remember, but we were taking questions from the crowd, and this one lady said, I've got a half draft, half something, and I got this problem and that problem and something else. And Ben Atkinson very nicely read her the riot act and said, you know what, you've got to stop projecting qualities onto your horse because of the breed, because they're affecting your energy around your horse, they're affecting your perspective of the horse. And it was really, really well done. It was at the end, everybody clapped, and we were talking about it afterwards. Some of us presenters were talking about it afterwards, and someone said, oh, I kind of felt sorry for that lady because everybody clapped when Ben gave her a dressing down. But I said, I didn't feel like everybody clapped because Ben gave her a dressing down. I think everybody clapped because they were all kind of like, yes, that's what I needed to hear. I needed to hear that because I too tend to project a lot of what I think the breed of my horse is going to do into the interactions, and that can tend to create certain interactions. One of the things that was amazing about that horse expo and about all horse expos is getting to meet people and talk with people when they come up to the booth. And in that little Facebook post I read before, the lady said they stood in the cold and they stood in line, and it was cold there, and there was probably the longest line I've ever had at a horse expo. There's a lot of people wanted to, just have a chat, tell me their story. It was really cool. There was a lady from England who flew to California to come to a retreat right here on this couch, actually, here at the Journey On Ranch. Jenny, she showed up at the booth and said hi. I was talking to a lady from Paris who's a stockbroker. I think she's a stockbroker, like on Paris Wall Street. And she was telling me that some of the stuff she learns from my horse training videos, she actually uses on Wall Street in Paris. So I thought that was pretty cool. I had a group of kids from a place called Think Like a Pony, which is a place in England. And what they're doing is there's a lot of preconceived ideas about ponies and how they're rotten and all that sort of stuff. And this is horsemanship for little kids with ponies. And they came by the booth. They were the sweetest kids to chat with. They were great. And I went to Argentina earlier this year to do the Gaucho Derby Academy, and there's a girl named Hayley from England who was on the academy. Well, she came by the booth to say hi too, so that was fun. But probably one of the coolest things I saw all weekend was in the Destiny Equestrian Theatre showcase on the Saturday night, and it was part of Oliver Phillips and Freddie Steele's crew, but there was this ballerina, and I think her name was Anna. I'm sorry, Anna, if your name's Anna, if you're watching this. I can't remember your name, but she's a Russian-trained ballerina, not necessarily a lifelong horse girl, and she was doing this ballet act first on this little pedestal thing alone, but then with a horse. And the night before, when you have a horse in an arena like that, there's lots of lights, there's the big crowd on one side which pushes you, there's the gate on the other side that pulls you, the friends are back in the stalls. And apparently in the rehearsal the night before, it didn't go so well. She's working with a horse that she doesn't really know, and this horse is loose, and she's doing this ballet stuff, and he's supposed to follow her around, okay? And what I saw her do was probably the best reading of a situation with a horse that I've seen from someone who is not a hugely experienced horse person. So she's out in the arena with this horse and, just doing various ballet stuff. And she'd move and she'd draw him towards her. But there was one point in time she moved to a different spot and she stopped. He stopped, she stopped. She's doing various ballet stuff with him. She actually kind of did this, I don't know what it is. She bent upside down in front of him and whatever. But then he looked like he was going to leave, and so she drew him back to her right before he left. And then he follows her across the arena. She's doing some more amazing ballet things. And then she makes another decision. They stop together. She's doing some more ballet stuff. And he kind of looks towards the gate and goes to leave. And then she moves around a bit there, and he goes to leave again, and she tries to draw him to her, and she realizes he's not coming. So what does? She runs around in front of him and catches, picks him up again, and off they go. And that could have gone so wrong right there. She tried to draw him and he wasn't coming, and so she decided she needed to go with him. There's that old Ray Hunt saying, first you go with them, then they go with you, then you go together. And then the next time she got to a point, he was doing the same thing, and looked like he wasn't going to come back, so she went with him and took him off somewhere else and just kept the act going and kept him hooked to her. And it was just great to watch how much feel she had for the situation, when she had to go with the horse, when she had to get the horse to come with her. So that was a great way to finish off the whole thing. I loved watching that act, and I made sure I went up to her afterwards and said, that was one of the coolest, I saw some great horsemanship this weekend, but that was really cool stuff from a Russian trained ballet dancer. So after the Horsemanship Showcase was over, I had another couple of days in England. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I ended up going to London. And the first day I went into the Natural History Museum, and this building is absolutely beautiful. And I'm not sure if it's not where they filmed A Night at the Museum, the Ben Stiller movie. I'm not sure, but it looks a lot like it. But absolutely beautiful place. But there was some things I read in there by Charles Darwin that were just worth repeating. And it said, man in his arrogance thinks himself a great work worthy of the interposition of a deity. More humble, and I believe truer, to consider him created from animals. That was one that I thought was pretty amazing. And then there was another Charles Darwin quote, and it said, freedom of thought is best promoted by the gradual illumination of men's minds, humans' minds, which follows the advance of science, which I thought was pretty cool. But there was another one from Thomas Huxley. It said, for every man, the world is as fresh as it was at the first day, and as full of untold novelties for him who has the eyes to see them. And that's about being really present and being able to get rid of all of your lenses that you look through life at, and you can really see what's in front of you. So I thought that one was really cool. And then there was a display case, and it was about meteorites and things like that, but there was this little glass beaker with some stuff in the end of it, and the little sign next to that said, diamonds from stardust. If you look carefully at the bottom of this little tube, you'll see a white smudge of powder. This smudge is made up of millions of microscopic diamonds. These are the oldest things you will ever see. They formed in the dust around dying stars billions of years ago, before our solar system existed. The diamonds dispersed in space and eventually became part of the material that formed our solar system. Ultimately, some of them fell to Earth in meteorites, like the ones you see here. So I thought that was really cool. And then, I went in there, the sun was still up, and when I came out of that building, it was nighttime and the lights were on it, and it's just, it's such a magnificent building. If you ever get to go and see that building itself, like a lot of buildings in London, they, on their own, are just amazing. The next day I got to go to the Museum of London. So the Museum of London is where they have the Rosetta Stone. And if you're not sure what the Rosetta Stone is, it's this stone tablet that they found, and there was a written language that scientists couldn't decode. But on this stone, there is 3 lots of written language, and the first 2, we know how to decode them. And we can read, scientists can read, or archaeologists or whatever can read those languages, and they are both exactly the same passage. So then the passage below that is exactly the same passage as those 2 in a language that before the Rosetta Stone was found, we couldn't read. And now it helped, linguists or whatever they are, to decode a previous language that was ununderstandable, if you put it that way. What's really interesting, there's so many stone relief, like these stone carvings in there from like Assyria back in, I forget when they are, but they're really detailed of horses doing things. There's some big scenes of when the kings used to hunt lions, so they would hunt lions in chariots, and it was a sport that they did. And talk about being some real stuff going on there. But what's interesting is one of the big reliefs, the carved reliefs, the horses are actually matching steps. So the horses in this thing, their legs are in time. So that was pretty cool to see. And there was something else I saw there, which is a close-up of a knot. So the knot that you use to tie a rope halter with is called a sheet bend. Okay, and in sailing terms, they use it to tie two ropes of different diameters together in a way that's going to hold. But that rope, that knot that you tie in a rope halter is called a sheet bend. And there was a carving there from, let me have a look at what date these things were. 865 to 860 BC from Assyria. And there was a carving there, and it was this it was a piece of equipment on a horse, but it was tied on with a sheet bend. So, that knot that holds on your rope halter is not a new knot. It's a very old knot from 800 and something BC. But anyway, that was my whole trip to London, and this is my first episode of Journey on Ranch TV here from the beautiful Journey on Ranch in Paso Robles, California. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be doing a lot more of them. We'll see you guys next time.